As soon as I removed my limiting beliefs, my entire life changed. I mean, I'm sitting on a property that's like an acre that my wife and I just bought. We're having a baby in the next week or so. I'm 22 years old. We made around $50,000 in our business this week. And as soon as I changed my limiting beliefs, everything in my life changed. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now. And if you're watching this, the very first limiting belief that you need to break, and the first one that broke for me, was how long it actually takes to get where you want to go. I remember sitting at my 9 to 5 in one of like the little office spaces they had on the side. And I was in there when I was supposed to be working. And I remember filming a video. I'd watched a whole bunch of like YouTube videos about how to make $10,000 a month online and all this stuff. And I remember sitting there filming a video of myself and telling myself that within the next year, I was gonna get married and I was gonna finally make $10,000 per month.
Grayson, you're probably gonna see this a year from now. You'll have at least 10K month clients.
I had no idea how I was gonna do it. In fact, on the plane ride home, because that was in Arizona, I live in Washington. On the plane ride home, when I finally moved back to Washington, I was mapping out on a journal every single step I was gonna take to try and make $10,000 a month. And I gave myself a full year to try and do it. And what's crazy was 16 days after I flew home and after making that video, I made my first $10,000 online. And it completely changed the way that I thought about money. It completely changed the way I thought about business. And it completely changed the way that I thought about speed. Because I think most of us grow up and we see like 30, 40, 50-year-old people that finally have money, and it took them a long time to be able to get to that spot, right? They didn't travel till they finally were like 40s and 50s. They didn't have kids until they were older. And so for me in my life, you know, I always just thought like, yeah, you don't really have money, you don't make money until you're older, right? Like you have to like work for a long time to try and figure things out, and then eventually you can finally get to a spot where you actually make money. And then within 16 days, I was somehow making my first $10,000. I was like, man, is this even real? Like, is this like, am I in a dream right now? Like, is this even like, can I do this again? And I started honestly doubting myself, wondering like, man, am I a 16-day one-hit wonder? Am I actually going to be able to go make $10,000 again? Or was this a fluke? And then the next month I made 20, and then I made 30. And within 8 months, I had my first ever $50,000 month. And ever since that day, everything in my life has completely changed. Now, this brings me to the second key limiting belief that I had to completely change, which was that I have full autonomy over my life. I think a lot of us have this looming feeling that like somehow someone else is in charge, someone else has a plan for us, when obviously God has a plan, but at the same time, you have full control over the actions you take on a daily basis in order to get where you want to go. And nobody is coming to save you. Like there's nobody that's going to come and finally say, hey, I'm going to pull you out of your job and help you start a business and support you for 6 months or a year while you do it. That's just not going to happen. And so for me, I had to realize that I have full control over my entire life. The first time I actually realized it was when I was planning on playing college basketball at a local school. And I remember I was sitting in my dorm room after our very first practice the first week, and I was just tired of playing basketball. I was so burnt out. And I remember it was for the first time ever that I was like, you know what? I'm in full control of my life, right? Like this is kind of like a video game. I can just like press different buttons and decide to make a different decision. And so the next day I researched, how I was going to get out of this college and how I was going to move and go to live in Arizona instead of where I was at, and try and start a business instead of going to college. And I remember researching that night and then going to the office of the college the next morning, shaking, holding my like resignation paper, whatever, saying I wanted to drop out. And that was the first moment. As soon as I walked out of that office and they actually let me drop out, I got a full refund from the college. That was the first time I realized, holy crap, like I'm in full control of my life. I can literally do whatever I want, whenever I want. Like I can just take control and make whatever decision that I want. But before that, I felt like I had control. I felt like for some reason, other people and a system was sort of running my life. But now I know that I'm in full control of every single thing. I know I control where I live. I control who I spend my time with. I control how much money I make. I'm in full control of everything. And so realizing you have autonomy is one of the biggest, most important limiting beliefs that you need to remove so that you can actually decide to do with your life what you want to do. The third limiting belief was honestly a hard one, and it's about money. Now, obviously, in order to have autonomy, in order to travel the world, in order to, have freedom, you need to make money, right? Because money is the operating currency of the world. It's going to allow you to buy a house. It's going to allow you to travel the world. Like, you need money to do things in life. It's just a fact. And so for me, I remember when I started my first business and I was on the sales call closing my first ever client, and I think he paid me like $2,500 or maybe $3,000 a month. And I remember when he paid me that money, and it like completely changed the way that I thought about money, because at the time it was only going to cost me $200 or $300 to fulfill on that client. And so I was going to make like 90% profit margins or something crazy. And so at the time I was like, holy crap, this guy is paying me $3,000. Like, most people, that's like their, that's like their salary, right? They get paid $3,000 a month for like a full-time job. And I was getting paid by this guy $3,000, and he was just going to be like one of my clients, one of like many clients that I was going to sign up. And now I'm just going to be completely honest with you. This morning we made $12,000 in the business, and I have zero emotional tie to the amount of money that I make at this point. Whenever I get a payment that comes through, right, let's just say it's 10 grand or 20 grand in a day or whatever, I actually have zero emotional tie to the money anymore. And that was a huge limiting belief that I had to break, was that money is hard to make, because money is so easy to make. And I know it might be difficult to hear that, right? But you kind of have to trick yourself into thinking that money is easy to make and that money is abundant in the world. And I had to trick myself into believing that before I actually believed it, right? Because when I made that first $3,000, if I didn't think money was abundant, if I thought money was a scarce resource, I maybe would have been scared to charge $3,000 to that first client. And now if I still had those beliefs, they would tell me, maybe I should just charge a few $100, or, there's not that many clients out there for me to get, so I shouldn't even try to run this business. When the reality is, you need to completely change your mindset and understand that there is so much money out there in the world, and other people have your money right now. There are other people in the world. This is how I think about it. Other people in the world have my money in their bank account, and all I need to do is put an offer together so good that they're going to give me the money that they have, so now it's mine. And then eventually, someone else is going to make me an offer so good, and I'm going to spend my money with them, right? So money is abundant. There's plenty of money in the world. That's one of the key limiting beliefs that I had to break. Now, if you're watching this, you could probably see that I'm like 22 years old, right? Crazy. I know, I'm married early, having a kid early, bought a house early, all that kind of stuff. But one of the key limiting beliefs that I had to break around time was my age. When I first got on my first few sales calls, I wasn't that confident, right? And because I wasn't that confident, I would get on and people would go, how old are you, dude? Right? And they would ask, and I'd be like, oh, I'm 19 or I'm 20 years old. And now I legit have not had someone ask about my age in a long time. And it really just comes down to confidence. It has nothing to do with how old you actually are. Now, confidence stems from, hey, do I have evidence to show that I'm actually good at this stuff? Fake confidence can be cool, but at the same time, I like to have real confidence, which to me just means I have evidence to back up what I believe in. For example, if I wanted to go make $100,000 next month, if you're watching this, you might be like, dude, there's no way I would have the confidence to be able to say, I'm going to make $100,000 next month. But since I have a big stack of evidence for the last year of me making $100,000 a month, I have a lot of evidence to be confident that next month I will probably make $100,000. And so the reality is, even though you might look young, you might actually be young, it doesn't really matter how old you are, how much experience you have. All that matters is confidence and evidence. If you have evidence to show that you have done something before, then you should have all the confidence in the world, no matter how old you are. The second key thing is, you don't actually need to have even done it before to have confidence. For me, sometimes I do what I call borrowing confidence from other people, right? So sometimes if I don't feel confident, like for example, I've never made $300,000 in a month or $500,000 in a month. So I have zero evidence to show that next month I would be able to go make $300,000 or $500,000 in a single month. But what I do oftentimes for things that I've never done myself before is I'll find somebody else that's done it, and then I'll borrow their confidence and realize that I'm really not that different than them. And so I'll just borrow their confidence so that I can see, okay, they've done it. If they've done it, that means a human being has done it. No human being is perfect. I'm not perfect. But if they can do it, I can probably do it too. I remember I hosted a mastermind in Arizona about a year and a half ago. And at the mastermind, we were going around kind of doing like hot seats where everybody kind of says their biggest takeaway from the weekend. And there was this one client of mine, his name is Max. He's a really cool guy. And we were going around, and his biggest takeaway, because he was making maybe like 5 or 10 grand a month at the time, and I was doing maybe like 60, 70 grand a month at the time. And he was like, He has like this cool South African accent, and it's hilarious. And he was kind of just saying like, hey, I kind of realized that Grayson's not Einstein, right? Like Grayson's not that smart of a guy. And everybody laughed. But at the same time, I was like, that is a great takeaway. Because what Max realized is what I realize every time I meet somebody that's making more money than me, is that they're really not that special. There's nothing that inherently different or special about anybody that makes them different to the point that I couldn't do exactly what they've done. One of the biggest key limiting beliefs that you can remove is the same thing that Max did, which is getting around people that have done what you want to do and realizing, wow, they really aren't that different. They've just done and taken the actions necessary to get where I want to go. And I'll be honest, I have clients that are like 30s, 40s, 50s. I've had a 60-year-old client before, right? And they are asking me for advice because I run like a coaching consulting company. And so I have clients that are 20, 30, 40 years older than I am that have asked me for my advice on business and how to get clients and how to market online. And so age is seriously just a number. Having a stack of evidence to show, hey, I've done this before and I should have confidence in this area, or borrowing someone else's confidence is the only thing that I care about. It does not matter how old that I am. Now, the fifth key limiting belief, and this one honestly changed everything for me, is if you're watching this, you probably have a plan, or at least some level of like an idea of a plan for your life, for your business, right? You know that, hey, here's what I'm going to try and do after this. I'm going to try and do this and then this and then this. And you have sort of like this sequence probably in your head of like, here's the order and here's how fast the thing I can move. Maybe your goal is like 10 grand a month in the next 6 months. Maybe your goal is $1 million a month in the next year. I don't know where you're at if you're watching this video. One of the key things I had to realize was that I always tend to have a plan, right? Like, hey, this month I want to hit this projection. Next month I'd like to do this. In 2025, I think we can make X amount of revenue. Or even for my fitness, right? It's like, hey, I want to lose this much weight in this amount of time or gain this much muscle in this amount of time. And especially for business, what I had to realize is that your plan is all based on where your current beliefs sit. For example, the plan I have for next month is how we can do $200,000 in cash, right? And so that's the plan I have for the month of November, because at the time of making this, it's October. And that plan is based on my beliefs around what's actually possible for me. And I remember when I was first starting out, all I could really believe at the time was that $10,000 a month is probably the most amount of money that I could make. And so all my beliefs told me that that's a lot of money. There's no way that I could shoot higher than that. And the only way that I broke that belief was when I made 10 grand in the first 16 days. And then I had to go, well, shoot, I have a whole 16 days left in the month, 15 days left in the month. Maybe I should shoot a little bit higher, right? But I only broke that belief once I actually did it and had evidence to show that I could do it. But if you're watching this again, you have a plan right now, right? You have a timeline, you have a goal. And if you don't, you should probably create one. Otherwise, you're never really going to get anywhere. And just understand that your current game plan is all going to be based on where your current beliefs sit. And if you can find somebody, this is what I would encourage every single person to do. And this is exactly what I've done, is find somebody who's done it twice as fast as you want to do it, 3 times as fast as you want to do it. Pay them money, learn how to do it 3 times as fast, because what we pay for is speed, right? If I asked you, hey, do you want to make 10 grand a month in the next 50 years? You'd be like, dude, that's way too long, right? But if I said, hey, do you want to make 10 grand a month in the next 5 days? You'd be like, shoot, that might be worth it. And so speed does matter, right? Our time is our only finite resource. We only have so much time. And so if you can pay for speed at any given point, I'm always willing to pay to accelerate the journey to get where I want to go faster, so that I can break those beliefs and then set another goal, break those beliefs and set another goal. And it's a constant loop of growing yourself, basically. It's not a pursuit of making more money. It's not a pursuit of being happier. It's not just a pursuit of more and more and more and more. It's a pursuit of constantly growing who you are, right? Because my life does not materially change that much between making 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month, or 200 grand a month, right? Like, I have a family, I have my wife, we're having a kid soon, I have this property. I don't really plan on buying any other properties. Like, this is an awesome place. I don't want to move. So it's like, there's not that much that materially changes in my life between 50 grand a month or 100 grand a month or 150 or 200 or $1 million a month, right? My life really doesn't change that much. And so what it is, it's the constant pursuit of self-development and growth. It's continuing to challenge myself and grow, right? And for most people, most entrepreneurs, it's not actually about hitting the monetary goal, right? Because once you make your first goal of like 10 grand a month, we always have the next goal. It's like, okay, sweet, we made 10, now let's make 20. right? So there's always going to be more. So it's not about hitting the number and then finally being okay, right? Because I remember at a point in my life where I was like, if I could just make 50 grand a month, I'd be set. I would never even try and make more money. And then I got there. And then I tried to make more money. And so it's like, we're never going to be satisfied where we're at. What we want to do is just stay in the game. All we want to do is just keep playing the game forever. That's really it. There's no end goal. Peace out.